Okay, so the next thing we can get on with is with the metalwork. Now, as you can see, we've got this all masked up. Run around with the tape for the actual area, so have a look at your references to make sure you're following the right line down. Basically, it's the one in front of the scoop at the back here. Now, obviously, you've got acrylic paints, silvers, you've got Model Master silvers, you've got the guns range as well, which are sort of, these are all lacquer based, as well as acrylic. But at the end of the day, I think you really can't go wrong with using alclads, especially at this scale, because it's a bigger scale. So what we've actually got here is some black primer. Now, normally we only use the primer for doing certain areas, like using chrome and things like that. But because we've got sort of pre-shading down here, we've got various colours going on here, we need to sort of unify that. So what we're going to do, we're going to put some gloss black primer on here. So if we just fire up the airbrush. So we just get some air in the tank. That's had a good shake already, this. So we're going to just pour this straight into the colour cup. Now, this is enamels, so obviously it's a bit smelly, and if you haven't got an extractor, it might be worth whipping a window open at this point, because as I say, it is extremely smelly. Okay, out it comes. So what we're going to do is just layer on a couple of coats of the black, so it has a nice surface for the alclad to stick to. So it's going to take a couple of coats to bring this up. Now, I'm only doing this for the exhaust area. The rest of it, I'm quite happy to leave it as is. So certainly inside the exhaust area, we've also masked up around the front here, because this is going to be metal. It's going to be metal inside as well. And the other areas we've done, which we can all do all at the same time, get that stand up, is we're doing the leading edges of these wings as well. So they need to be done because there's a titanium strip runs down them, and obviously for the back end around this engine, which we take care of as well. So I'll just continue priming this up with the black gloss. Okay, so as you can see, we've got some a little bit of tonal difference in there. What we're trying to do really is give it that metal effect, and all metal isn't the same when you look at it, especially on something like an exhaust area like this. So what we're doing, we're just going around that, layering down different colours. Now what we've got actually here is some steel, and steel, the colour tends to be a little bit darker, so we'll just take a drop of it there. Check our flow, and all we're going to do is just follow the panel line around, just to give it the effect of some heat, because against that original colour of the aluminium, it should be a little bit darker. It will just give the impression of a little bit of heat. Now, this is one of those things that's probably not going to show too well on camera, although you might be able to see it there, but that's the type of effect we're going for, to give it that type of heated look to it. So what we're doing, we're just going to pop around the front edge as well, the seam line where it joins the normal paintwork, and it will just give it a effect of heat. And what we're going to do is just pop around the rear tail. Now with this one, you could go along with the hot colours, which are, obviously I've got the reds and blues, but when you look at references of the Crusader, it doesn't seem to have it. So what we're going to do, we're just going to stick with it just like that, giving it that nice metal effect like that. So I'm quite happy to stop there. And then on the engine as well, we've put on a couple of different colours on there at the moment. What we're going to do now is just pop around and just give some little bandings to give it the effect of fans going on in there, and that perhaps it's different temperatures going on inside. So we're popping around, layering in little bits. I'm just going to put a top area because there's some cabling around there, like so. And then I'm just going to pop some of this inside, and then we're going to just squirt it up inside the engine area as well, that back nozzle, to give us this type of effect. So there we go. And what we're going to do in a moment, a bit later on when we get near the end, we're going to add a little bit of wiring to this. It's one of those things, actually here in front of me, it's not as shiny as it's appearing on camera. So we're just going to, the areas where there's bands, those steel bands that make up the engine, we're just going to lightly blow those in as well, just so we're getting this effect of different metals going on there. But it's quite a nice engine, and as I say, when you're using alclad like that, it really comes into its own, because the effect you get with it is absolutely stunning. So there we go, we're going to stop at that point. One thing I have learned when you spray an alclad is knowing when to stop, because it's so easy to get carried away with them. You end up going around and spraying and away you go. Now if you are using alclads, obviously you want to clean it out your airbrush as soon as you can. What I tend to use is some of their nice airbrush cleaner, which is basically cellulose thinners. I always just pierce a little hole in the top, because you wouldn't believe the amount of times I've tipped this over. And then obviously in a well ventilated room, we just give this a bit of a mix around, and I get it all off absolutely everywhere. So we just do the outsides as well. We clean that brush, just going around everywhere with it like that, and then we just tip it away. What we don't use, then we put a tiny bit more in, and we'll just pop this through our cleaner pot, just to get rid of all that residue, because I don't like leaving this stuff in an airbrush, particularly for a long time. So we're through, we get the outside all a nice wipe over, so it's all nice and clean. And then we just go inside the colour cup as well. Then as I say, if you are using this stuff, make sure you either got a good window open, or you've got your actual spray booth spraying. Now to tell you the truth, the spray booth has been going very nicely, thank you. I've had it blowing away whilst the camera hasn't been rolling. Then all we do, we've just got our normal airbrush cleaner in this now, and I'm just going to blow it through, make sure it all runs around the colour cut, so there's no residue on there at all. All we do is blowing that all through, and it's all coming through nice and clear. There's nothing coming out on the paper towel at all, no bits and nasties, so I'm quite happy to stop there, and the airbrush can be put away, so you don't have to worry about that. Right, so whilst those bits have all been drying and doing nicely like that, we just pull you out a little bit. Also, the other thing we've been doing, the leading edges on the tail planes, they've had a coat. We've also got on the leading edges of the main wings as well, so if we just whip this one off, you can have a look. There we go, that's those on just like that, which is it's a nice little touch to do them. It doesn't call out for them in the instructions, but trust me, I've built a few of these, as all the ones I've done have had it. So that's with that, and obviously the main wings, this leading edge of the wing area as well, exactly the same. So we just unmask these here, so if I just do one to show. And there we go, so you can see the metal edge effect, and it's a nice little touch. So we're really to the point now where we can do a little bit more detailing work, because obviously we need to put some plumbing around for the wiring around here. We can obviously take care of the gun bays, the refueling rigs and the undercarriage now, just to make sure they're all happy. But before we do all of that, we've just got one final little bit of painting to go, and that's around this nose. So what we're going to do, we're going to mask up this front area around the nose, obviously bung up the air intake because we don't want any nasties going down there, and we can spray this front part, which is actually jet black. Okay, two little things. We've put the little side plate, if you can see me in the light, there we go, on there for the tails, so then the tails can sit just up like so, whether they are fitted. I won't fit them yet, but that's basically the tail section is now done. We went to a little bit of touch up with the whites with a little bit of overspray on, to be honest, so we've taken care of that, but I'm more than happy with the tail. So what we've got now, we've masked up this entire front area, which is looks a lot more complex than it is, but I don't want to get any intake sort of black paint down the intake and things like that. So we've got a little bit of plasticine stuff up there as well. and we've masked up the area and curved it in. So we're just going to do this with standard flat black XF1 Tamiya, which has already been thinned a bit anyway. We'll just pop that all in there and we'll check our spray. Right, we'll do the tricky area first, which is this underside part. So we'll just put on a layer under here. Like so, and then we'll just work our way around the rest of it. Just up round like that, so if we bring you in a little, you can see a bit better. There we go. So we're just going to go across the top. Running out of black paint now, we need a smidgen more, we can squeeze some more out of the colour cup. Just enough to get this side done, so we're just going to come out head on. There we go, just cut into air to dry it down. Too wet. Okay, there we go. Let's turn that off. One sec, I'm just pulling you out a little bit. So if we gently have a look, now bearing in mind this is all still wet, so we have to be rather careful. It'll give you an idea of how I masked it up as well. So there we go, that's that. Then what we want to do is just hook out the get it. There we go. That front section all out. Yeah, we just use a knife to hook under. Very carefully. Always push my luck when I do these too soon. We should get and there we go, that's our front. So we've just got a little bit of masking up inside there just to remove. So we'll very carefully, if we start on this edge. And all going well, it should hook the others. There we go. So there's the underside of that intake, all done. Very nice. And actually it's one of the crucial areas with it, because it's one of those areas, what I call a focal point, where your eye will be drawn to it. So by the time we've got the rest of it all together, we'll be up. So right, I'm very happy with the way that is at the moment. What I'm going to do is just to protect everything for the moment, along with the tail and the wings, I'm going to give it all a coat of Johnson's Clear just over it, and what that'll do, it'll just prevent greasy finger marks being attracted to it. It'll protect the paintwork as well from getting scuffed and scratched, and then we can go around and we can detail up all these little areas for the base and the bits and pieces all like that, and we can really start getting this thing together. Okay, so the top coat is all completely dry now. No problem, that's the future. It's been drying overnight, so it's nice and hard. So that means really we're totally handleable now. And it's protecting the paintwork. So obviously we used acrylics. It can be a little bit on the case of where easy scratchable, things like that. I have scratched it just at the top here, to be honest, which we have to touch in. But we can do that as part of the weathering afterwards. Now, the other thing I've got going on at the moment, you might be able to see in here, I've got some weathering going on. The reason I'm doing it now, it's easier to get the wash in amongst there before we put the gear together and have it all hanging out and all the rest of it. So what we've done, we've put black Pro Modeller's wash. So if we move you in, you can see it in the top, which when it dries, obviously all the bubbles go and it'll leave you with a nice dirty weathered look, and that's the type of thing we're after, so we're going to leave that. Same in the gun base here and in the wheel well. So all we do, it's the black Pro Modeller's weathering wash. So we just have a flat brush, and quite liberally what we do is just give it a good rub round absolutely everywhere. Now it's quite bubbly, but the bubbles work for you, because what that does, it gets in all the rivets and all the little details, and especially in a complicated wheel well like these, which I know you can get an aftermarket set for this particular aircraft and things like that, but quite frankly it's a very nice set and quite detailed, so I can't really see the point of that one myself on this particular case. So what we do, we're just going to get these amongst everywhere, and as I say, don't worry about if it's a little bit bubbly, because that works for you, because obviously it's putting on a thinner coat and all those bubbles will disappear, so you don't have to worry about that. And as I say, once they do disappear, it will look something like this front one here, just like that. So there we go. So we just let those dry off. Don't worry about any overspills if you're using the Pro Modeller's wash, because they will literally just wipe off. Just damp cloth and give them a rub and they will go, just like so. So what we do, we just let that dry so it's a bit more touchable. We can see how it is, and if we need to, we can come back and we can take a little bit off with a cotton bud or a cloth and just give it a rub, and then we can pick out some details, perhaps with a little bit of dry brushing and things like that, same way. Okay, so we've moved on a little bit. What I've actually been doing is a couple of bits, very straightforward to do. Like we've built and painted the undercarriage, which you can't probably see because there's a bit of white down here. Just move those. Yeah, so we've done the undercarriage, put them together. Now the nose wheel one is the only one that I've done slightly different, where I put it together because you can expand them and then get the wheel hub in. So we painted the wheel hub white. That will fit in, and then we can put the tyre onto it and then in, and it just makes it easier to paint it and all the rest of it. So that one's pretty straightforward. The main gear, the way I did it was I put it in, just push fitted it in. If we do this around the right way, it is that way. So obviously it's a straightforward push fit on, and then it goes in like that, and then I glued it just at this end on the top one here, let it go hard, and then literally we just pulled it off, and then that way we then could spray it, and we've obviously done the metal work on there, and what it will do, it will get a wash over it just to liven it up a bit and bring the gear to life. So that one's done. Same for the other side. We've also done the extensions for the actual for the lifting up of the main wing. They're painted white, so those can be fitted on as well in a moment when we're ready for those. So that's those bits done, and basically we've gone round and done all the little jobs that needed doing. Like we've built the missiles, still got to paint the nose black at the front. Now there's a couple of pin marks on this sidewinder, so I just filled them, a little bit of putty, sanded them off and done. So we just got to paint the fronts there of those black, and that's those done. Same with the, he says, grabbing them, the Zuni rockets. We've got those. The strange thing is you can't have 4 sidewinders on this one, so it looks like you're going to have to do 2 and 2. So you're going to have 2 sidewinders and 2 Zuni rockets, so you can't just have like a pack of Zunis on there or sidewinders. You have to have one of each unless you've got a spare kit lying around. So pretty straightforward, 2 halves together, painted white, and then these will just literally glue on like so, and these are the ones that are going to fit to the side. Now these are always painted white, even though they're in technically the darker area, but they will fit in just like so when it's glued in, just in the side like that. And there's a funny way to look at those, but we'll explain a bit more when we put them down. But what it does, you have to have it this way round, otherwise you can't get to the gun area, so it's the longer one to the front. So that's done. So we've got all those little bits done. Oh, speed brake as well. We've built the speed brake, and that's all done, so that will fit just in like so, and we'll go underneath and showing red. Basically what happens is when the Crusader is powered down, the hydraulics obviously bleed off, and depending on how tight the hydraulics are, i.e. how much bleed it can release, is how much they come down, and normally they touch the floor because they're fully out. Some of the other crews, speaking to a couple of people when I was looking at references for this one who worked on these, apparently it seemed to be a little bit of a competition of how tight they could get the system so it didn't drop, but apparently it didn't last long because they all used to do it. Anyway, so that's those bits done. So really, we're into the stage now where we've got all the little sub-assemblies going on and a bit of being finished off. So what I'm going to do next is to actually decal or decal the model itself. Now the reason for doing that now is, there again, it's just easy to get in here. We can do it quite straightforward, no problem at all at the moment. Yeah, if we wait when we've got other things attached to it, it'll be trouble sort of getting them in and all around. So what we're going to do, we're going to clear the bay and get on with some decaling. Okay, so what we've got to do now, obviously because there's certain problems with the decal placement. For instance, the biggest one, there we go. If we show you this one here, which is obviously the big stars and bars that run down the side, trouble with that is it's going to be right over the top of the gun bay here. So there's method in the madness of why I didn't build the guns first, because this way we can just literally pop the doors on with a bit of blue tack in here, holding them in place, without the worry of actually, when we pull it off, taking perhaps some of the more delicate photo etch parts and gun bits with it. So all we do, we put it back in there, and then we can sit them on just like so, and we've done to the other side. And obviously we put the fuel door in as well, fuel filler door, because it's going to cover that. Then what we can actually do is place the decal on there, let it sit, conform to its business, and then we can pop around with a very sharp knife and cut it. And in that way, we're all good to go. And we should have no problem. So I'm just going to reset this one just a little bit, because it's riding up just a touch. That's it, that was perfect. So what we'll do is we're going to obviously work it in sections. Obviously we've got the fuselage section here, we've got the tails, got the tail planes fitted on there as well, and then obviously we've got the wings box. So if we do it in each bit as we go, the decals themselves, they're certainly not the best I've seen in the world, to be honest. But they're certainly not the worst. They seem to be quite thin. What we will be using though is obviously some micro sol at least, which is the setting solution if you like. So we'll be using a drop of that. So what we do start with, I'm going to pick out all the biggie ones first. So obviously we've got the ones down here, we've got the intake ones. Normally what I do is pick an area and work through. If you've seen any of my other builds, I'm basically going to do it just the same way. So for this ones, for instance, what we'll do is we'll start on with the intakes, and get those fitted on the front, and then we can move slightly back to the stars and bars over those intakes, and then the rest of it is pretty straightforward. So what we do, we're just, with a pair of decent scissors, we'll just cut those out. Excuse me, try not to sneeze. Okay, so we've got our spring-loaded clamps, we've got a bowl of water here. And what I do, I just put a drop or two of the micro sol in there. Okay, and then using a clean brush, I'm hoping this is a clean brush, we'll just give it a bit of a swirl around in there. Make sure the brush is nice and clean. Obviously you've got to make sure your brush is clean for this. Otherwise, if it gets underneath the carrier film, which is the clear part of the decal, and then it will never come off. So I've given that swirl around. All that really does is just, it makes it a little bit more softer in the water, and it stops them sometimes cracking on the paper. So we're going to do two at once with this one. Clamping it, making sure you're not touching the carrier film. Okay, decals side down. The reason for doing it that way, it stops them curling up on themselves. If they curl up, they do it too quick. If they're older decals, sometimes they can crack and split when you pull them apart. So having a good look at your references of where it's going to go. This one's obviously going to go right to the front of it. Some of them lay further back. But always have a good look first. Roughly work it out in your mind where it's all going to go. So what we'll do is we'll in there like that. All we do, put our finger on it and give it a nudge. If it moves, fair enough, as these did. If it didn't, with a with a very little pressure, then pop it back in for a few more seconds. That is absolutely fine. So remembering, obviously, have them the right way up. The writing will be the right way up. All we do, we take some of the water, like that, brush on the area where the decal will go. place it roughly in the right area and pull away. And we just put that one to the side a moment. Okay, now checking your references of how the actual decal goes in, and then what we can do, we can just nudge it all into position, exactly how it goes, and when we're happy with it, and everything else as it's sat, we take a cotton bud, clean cotton bud, and then all we do is just roll it along the decal, and what you're going to do is squish out all the water that comes out of it. And actually, I can honestly say these aren't too bad. They're very thin, and obviously the thinner they are, the easier they lay flat and go. Okay, happy with that one on, then taking a clean brush, get your microsole, some of the red stuff, and then all we do is brush it over the decal, just like so, and just give that a minute or two to do its business of actually settling down. Now at this point, if it suddenly screws up and starts to look a real, mess and all the rest of it, then you know that it's working, because what's happening is it's actually reacting with it and making it all shrink and shrivel up is a good thing, because what it'll do when it goes back down and lays flat, it should give you a very, very nice finish. Now the trouble, obviously, what we're trying to avoid is silvering. The biggest problem you get with silvering, and that's where you can see that shininess through the clear part, is all it is air bubbles trapped under it. Now on a big one like this, where obviously we've got plenty of carrier film with the clear part, in between the red, things like that, that's where you're going to get it. On the white here, it's not so bad. Darker colours, it really shows up, especially if you're using greens and things like that. So what we're going to do, if that does happen, we'll give it another coat, and I'll show you a little trick I use if it does do it, which is, this is my riveting tool, but you can just use a pin, and all I do is lightly rub it up and down so it pierces the actual the carrier film itself, and it enables the actual the setting solution to get underneath and shrink it and pull it back down. So I'm quite happy with that one. So what we do is, whilst that one is still on the go, I'll just be a bit clever and get two on the go. If we do this decal on the side here, which is number 23, because they're all number 23, so you don't have to worry about sizing. We just pull one off. Like so. It's the same thing again, we just grab it from an area where you can't see, face down, bit of a swizz. Okay, now this one, as you say, it's going to go onto the actual doors for the gun bay itself, so just make sure they're laying as smooth as you can down. They don't have to be 100%, but certainly we want them to be as nice as can be. There is other ways you could do this. This is just my preferred way. You could obviously cut it first, mark it, and then cut it, and do it like that. But I'm a bit of a klutz, to be honest, and those things tend to cause me trouble. So I always sort of stick with the way that you know. So there we go. That goes on. Making sure your stars and bars are the right way up. So all we're going to do is slip it over, and then very gently with our finger we're going to position it, so we know that this one goes, the blue part goes right up against the panel line that runs from the canopy and to the top. So there we go, we're just going to sit that just like so. Same thing again, just get that all out from underneath. Okay, we're happy with that. So then what we'll do, we use a bigger brush and we'll just put some of the setting solution onto that. Okay, then what we'll do, we'll keep an eye on it to make sure it's all going okay, but as it starts to conform and bear down on itself, and like that, what we can actually do, just before it's totally gone off, we'll come back with a knife and we'll give it a cut, so we can get in there a bit closer. So we'll leave that for a minute. I'll carry on doing some other ones for the moment, and then we'll come back and I'll show you cutting it.